So good to be in the house. We are in week number 2 of our series, The Secrets of Joy. We're studying the book of Philippians together, and we're still in chapter 1. And I pray that you were encouraged by this as the scriptures as we've been studying Philippians. You know, joy often doesn't come in the ways that we think it's going to come. It comes in different ways, and the secrets of joy. I love living in Aurora. I love living in Aurora for a lot of different reasons. And out of all the places that I've lived across the country, East Coast, the South, and the Deep South, come on, this, for me, it's not just a lack of humidity in Jesus' name. Come on, it's just not the freedom from Mississippi humidity. Ugh, come on, nasty. Yeah, nobody needs that. But not just that, but I love that we are surrounded by people that serve our country, men and women who give of themselves so faithfully to serve. And yeah, you can. That's good to clap for. I'm grateful. I don't know if you are. I am. I'm so grateful for the people that surround us, and I love talking to people in our community and asking them, "Hey, what do you do?" And you know, when you talk to certain people, we have a lot of people in intelligence in our area, and you ask them, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And they're like, "I do stuff. I do stuff." And I'm like so thankful for the stuff that you do. And I don't even know if we always know what stuff they do, and I don't know if they know either. And you don't want to ask a further question, because if they told you, then they would have to kill you. This is what it is. It's a secret, top secret, not easily known. You know, a lot of times we feel like in our lives that joy is a top secret item that we miss out on, that's segmented for a select few, but then where are we in life and what are we experiencing? And friends, joy is not for a select few and not meant to be kept top secret. It's for every believer. Joy is available to you and I every single day. And Paul, the writer in this book of the Bible, writing to the church in Philippi, is writing to a church from a prison in Rome, and he is writing about some of the secrets in joy. But joy isn't just something that we get in good times. Joy is something that we can also access in hard times. He's writing this letter to this church in Philippi from prison because of his faith. And despite his circumstances, he's writing a letter of joy. And he knew that the church that he was writing to would be concerned about him, for they had supported the work with prayer and finances, and he was giving them an update. And that's really where we're at in Philippians chapter 1 today, in verses 12 through 14. If you have your Bibles today, you can open them up to Philippians chapter 1, verses 12 through 14. Here's what he writes to the church in Philippi. "And I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me here has helped spread the good news. For everyone here, including the whole palace guard, knows that I am in chains because of Christ. And because of my imprisonment, most of the believers here have gained confidence." Can you say confidence? Confidence, and boldly speak God's message without fear. Have you ever had a good desire or a big dream, but it didn't really end up like you wanted it to? No? All the dreamers came to the last service, I guess. I don't know. We as a ministry have a vision for becoming a multiplying movement. What does that mean? That we multiply disciples, followers of Jesus, and we multiply churches. We start new churches. And really the vision for that really isn't just something that happened when Morgan and I showed up here at High Point to serve on staff. It's something that is deeply ingrained in who we are in our ministry as a whole. In fact, we planted a church in Boston, Massachusetts prior to coming to at the ripe age of 22 years old. Come on, who let that happen? I don't know. 22 years old, we started a church in Boston, and it's really ingrained into our DNA and our heart and our calling for our ministry. In fact, it's part of our family history. We stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us. My dad was part of our national fellowship who was helping start over 300 churches a a year. And that's what my dad did for many, many years, helping establish that organization that did that. My granddad actually started his last church when he was in his 80s. 80s. He didn't finish when he was 80. He started his last church when he was in his 80s. That's why I often say, hey, as long as you got breath in your lungs, God's not done. And God's got something. So we're like, what kind of basis are you basing it on? I'm basing it on what I've seen with my eyes and I know in my heart that God has great things in store for you and I if we give him our yes. If we give him our yes. And along the way, I've seen God do amazing things. And recently I thought, man, multiplication is in our future. Multiplying, starting another church is in our future. And I prayed and I prepared and I was working and I'm not going anywhere. Caveat, some of you are turning your heads like a confused dog. Listen, I don't mean that in a mean way, but like I just saying like we're not going anywhere, but we were going to help start another church and establish another church. And I thought it was coming and I was like, okay, this is maybe what God has for us. And we worked and we prayed and we worked and we prayed for months. And can I tell you, it fell apart. But the dream and the vision in our heart did not end. It is still there. It just didn't come about how we thought it would. It's in a different way. It's a not yet. We're not ready, but ultimately we have dreams and hopes and desires, and that's precisely where Paul was personally. Paul's chief desire was to preach in Rome, the hub of the great empire, Rome. And if Paul reached Rome, it would mean that he would be reaching millions with the message of Jesus. We see this desire in Acts chapter 19 when he says, I must also get to Rome. We see this when he was writing to the church in Corinth, and he says, I'm eager to get to Rome. For if he reached Rome, he could reach the world. Paul wanted to go as a preacher and a missionary, but ended up going to Rome as a prisoner because of his faith. It wasn't what he had expected. It didn't come out the way that he had anticipated. He was a missionary on a mission. You know, when missionaries used to go to foreign fields and we would send missionaries around the world, there would often be a goodbye with their family, and that could be possibly the last goodbye that they ever have. Now, because of modern technology, we're able to communicate on a regular basis through text messages and emails, and thank goodness for airplanes. They're easily transported back and forth. I mean, can you imagine sending loved ones away to a foreign field and saying, hey, we love you, we'll see you in heaven one day? But now missionaries are able to come back and forth, and we're able to communicate them through different various means. But ultimately, although the methodology has changed, the mission and the attitude has not. The gospel at any cost, the gospel at any means, going and doing hard things for the mission of God because people matter to God. We're willing to get out of our comfort zone and be in uncomfortable situations because people matter. So the mission of God has not changed. And that's really, it's important for us to understand that there was a cost for the missional life that Paul was living. And he refers to all the things that he faced and that had happened to him in verse 12. Verse 12, he says that everything that has happened to me here has helped me spread the good news. What are all the things that have happened to me? Because of his faith, he had experienced a riot, 2 years of imprisonment in Caesarea, an appeal to Caesar, a threat to his life, a shipwreck on the way to Rome, under house arrest because of his faith and his impending trial. It was a costly call, but it was not what he expected. And this would have been a really interesting place where he could have been whining and complaining about his conditions. I'm under house arrest. It's so horrible. I don't like, this is not what God has planned. But ultimately, Paul chose to have a perspective of what is good instead of complaining about what went wrong. He started to say, hey, in spite of all of these things, everything that has happened is not a detriment to what was supposed to happen. In fact, it helped spread the good news of faith to people all around. He said in the second part of verse 12, all of these things didn't hinder the gospel. They propelled the gospel. Little did the Romans realize that the chains that they affixed to his wrist would release Paul instead of hinder him. The chains that affixed to his wrist didn't hold him back from fulfilling his purpose. They propelled him into audiences that they could never imagine being in front of. He was under house arrest. And there's some secrets that we can gain and understand about joy in our life. The first one is this, is what you see as restrictions may be God's divine direction. What you may see as chains in your life, what may appear to be failures, may be leading you to something even more fruitful. It's a secret that you have to learn, that your challenges are not chains, they're catalysts for your purpose. Your obstacles are not barriers, they're building blocks for your destiny. What appears to be delays may be divine direction. Sometimes the things in your life that you think are binding you and holding you back are actually propelling you if you'll allow God to use them. That should unlock joy in somebody's heart today, that God can use every season of life for good. In fact, it reminds me of Romans chapter 8, verse 28, and Paul is writing to the church in Rome, and he says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Called according to his, God is not caught off guard. He isn't surprised by the tough things that we're walking through. He is able to work them out for our good. Not just a few things, but all things. Every season of life. To propel you into a greater season of effectiveness. God can use hard things. And friends, it's not over. God is not finished. God's got a plan. I want you to process this, that the Greek word that Paul used for the spread or to advance was the same verbiage used when referring to blazing a new trail before an army went to battle. When he's talking about, the message is spreading, what he's saying is, hey, we're bushwhacking through some obstacles, but we're blazing a new trail to get to where we're going. There's a battle that's gonna be won, and it's not the route that we thought we were gonna take. It's a different route along the way. Paul is telling these people that understand that they're blazing a new trail, and sometimes in life, you may be blazing a new trail along the way. Paul was an orator. He was an incredible communicator, used to preaching in large arenas and amphitheaters, proclaiming the goodness of God to a large audience, but now he finds himself in a moment of house arrest where he is chained to guards on 24-hour oversight, meaning that he was with people 24/7, 365 while he's waiting his trial. No way to preach in public, no way to be in an arena, no way to be in an amphitheater, but every 6 hours, a new set of guards would come into the room. And can I tell you, if I just use my imagination for just a moment, can you imagine Paul sharing the good news of Jesus with these armed guards? Every 6 hours, he had a new audience. Every 6 hours, he had a new audience to share about the goodness and the hope of Jesus. Every 6 hours, a new man came in, and you can't be in the presence of a person that loves God long enough, who prays without ceasing, who is pursuing the presence of God, who is writing encouraging letters to churches that he supports and has helped establish. You can't be around that long and not be changed by God's presence. Every 6 hours. See, it wasn't the way that he anticipated, but God had a greater purpose to take those who are guards to be, instead of taking the message of Jesus from the outside in, God brought him in and he was taking it from the inside out. In every moment and season of life, sometimes we walk through hard things, but it just didn't stop with the soldiers. It made it into Caesar's official courts. These Roman leaders did not know what to do with these Christians. Were they a dangerous group? Was it another sect of Jewish believers? What are they doing? So what happened before the trial? They had to study the tenets of faith to understand what Paul was talking about. People that would not have touched faith, stayed away faith, had to begin to study and understand what they were putting this man on trial for. So what seems as a complete failure is actually a propelling agent for Paul to get into the highest courts, proclaiming the goodness of God along the way. I want you to think about your situations in life. His chains were blazing a new trail. What situations and circumstances in your life are blazing new trails? Where is it that you feel restricted? Could it be that difficult job? Maybe you're tied to a desk. Maybe you feel confined to your house with your children. Maybe you're a salesperson constantly on the road. Maybe you're a school teacher and you feel trapped in your secular classroom. Maybe you're a high school student and you're tied to your schedule. Wherever you find yourself today isn't something to keep you in chains. It's to propel you into your purpose. Allow God to move in your life. And you can see it as punishment or a propelling agent. You are not where you are by accident. God can use your situation to blaze a new trail, to open new doors. Paul goes on to say this, verse 14. And because of my imprisonment, most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. They have gained confidence. Not only does the palace guard know that I'm in chains because of Christ, but the people, the Christians here, they have a greater joy. You know, we can pick things that we're joyful about. I got to tell you, I'm joyful that the heat of the summer is gone. Some of you are like, I miss it. Okay, go to Arizona. Like, I don't. I'm joyful the Buffs last night. They won. Maybe I'm in a bad audience, but go Buffs, let's go. Did you see that? That was filthy. If you missed it, you missed out. And I have joy because I have joy that's deeper than a game and deeper than a setting. I have joy because I have Jesus. And when I have Jesus, I can walk differently. I can speak differently. And I want you to grasp this moment that Paul's joy doesn't come, or the believer's joy doesn't come because they have courage, but courage came from Paul's joy. Joy doesn't come because they have courage, but courage comes because Paul had joy. Paul says most of the believers, all of the believers here in Rome have gained confidence. They've gained confidence. They've gained boldness. They've gained confidence in sharing their faith with others. The people around Paul took courage and boldness because of his joy in the hardship, because he made a proactive decision that he would have joy. Others around him began to have a courageous joy themselves. The church in Rome walked with a new boldness and talked with greater confidence, and God can give us a peace that surpasses our understanding. Here's what Isaiah chapter 26 verse 3 says: you will keep in perfect peace all who trust in you, all whose thoughts are fixed on you. I think a lot of times we think that joy is gonna come out of a situation, it's gonna make life easier. No, listen. Paul's decision to have joy and his courageous joy was sharing and multiplying into other people. And it's an important lesson for you and I that our perspective and how we carry ourselves will affect those around us. Negativity is contagious, but you know what's also contagious? Joy. Joy is also contagious. You can choose to be a negative Nancy if you want. And if your name is Nancy, I'm very sorry. I didn't do that on purpose, like all the Nancys in the room. Wow. You can be a negative Nancy, or you can choose joy. It is your choice. And however you choose to live will affect other people around you. We as believers should carry something different about us. We as believers don't put on fake smiles, but we have a deep-seated joy, not because of the circumstances that I'm in, but because of who I serve. Who we serve determines our joy. Paul was experiencing that perfect peace and encouraging others, and when we choose joy, it just doesn't affect us, it affects others as well. Several years ago, I got a meeting request, and it was kind of strange. I'd never heard of this person before, but they wanted to meet at Lazy Dog, and any good reason to go to Lazy Dog for me is a good reason at all. So we went to Lazy Dog across the street, and I sat down across from this table from this guy, and he looked at me and he said, hey, I got to tell you, I don't go to your church. We've never met before. I was like, I know. I looked you up in the database. You do not exist. And he said, I just got to tell you that God led me several years ago to start praying for your church and start praying for your family and start praying for your ministry. And I was so encouraged because God cares enough about you that he sent someone from the outside to encourage me so that I can continue to do what God's called me to do, so that you can live a life that God's called you to live, and the cascading effect of encouragement overflows again and again and again and again. My question for you is, who are you that random person to somebody else? Will you be that random person of encouragement? Maybe they're a family member. Maybe they're a friend. Maybe you're like, I don't know them, and that'd be awkward. Listen, you gotta tell you how 95% of my meetings are awkward. But ultimately, it's a perspective to live for. One person who chooses joy encourages other people. One person who chooses joy gets to encourage others in their life. Today, I want to have the opportunity for us to give encouragement and also receive encouragement. And in fact, in just a moment, I'm gonna invite one of our global partners who we support through our Waymaker initiative. Waymaker is our initiative that we give to above and beyond our tithe to support, to advance the mission locally, to reach people globally, and to raise up future Christian leaders. We have 60 plus partners that we support every month around the world. Today, one of those partners is here with us, and we're gonna share. There's two things that I ask. One is that you do not record or take photos during this time, for we don't wanna jeopardize their team that's in the field. They're in a difficult area, and so please don't take pictures or post about it, as we don't want to hinder their work of what they invested many, many years to do. So we ask that you respect that. If you do happen to take out your phone, the life safety team will respectfully come and tap you on the shoulder. And I know you don't want that this morning. And in all seriousness, and then also our stream is gonna actually end. And so we love you. We can't wait to see you next week. And they are gonna stop this in about 15 seconds. But ultimately, you are loved and you're cared for. And we can't wait to see you next week.